science knowledge only adds to the excitement, the mystery, and the awe of a flower.
Evidence is evidence. It's public. Everybody can look at the evidence and assess it, and eventually, if there's enough evidence, come to the same conclusion.
Cockatoos with attitude. Cockatoo. Hi, and welcome to Cockatoos with Attitude, episode 19. What's different about the Hollowbone set? Parrot bodies that can last for over 80 years. Is that you, Cecil? Is that you, Bob? Is that you, Bob? You got enough wood down there, Bob? Would you like something else to chew on, sweetie? Here. There's a big piece of wood on there if you want it, sweetheart. There you go. So, we're mammals, they're avians, and they're the descendants of dinosaurs, which we, of course, are not. There's a lot of differences. I mean, obviously, they have beaks, they have nails, they have claws instead of nails. They have 4 toes instead of 5. There's a lot of differences there, but some of the differences aren't so obvious. For example, they don't have a diaphragm, so they don't breathe the way we do. And if you were to hold a bird tightly, they cannot inhale. They don't have a diaphragm to pull the air in. So that's important to note. They have a unique air system in that air goes in, circulates all the way through and comes out. We have, hello Roman, we have residual air inside our lungs. They don't. The air comes in, circulates, and comes out. So their lungs are built quite differently. They have reserves inside too. They have air sacs, and these air sacs help to make them lighter. The other things that help to make them lighter is their hollow bones. They have bones that actually can contain air, and they're quite strong though. Their bones are quite strong. It's a little hot in here today. I have to stop once in a while and turn the air conditioner on. It's going to be 90, and this room tends to get to 100 when it's 90 outside, so I will be taking breaks to turn the air conditioner on and then coming back. So I'm also going to work off some notes, because when you're sitting around in the heat, it's a little harder to keep yourself on track. Plus, there's quite a few birds in here today too. They have a high metabolic rate, and this is an important thing to take note of, because if a bird becomes sick, their metabolic rate being what it is, they need a lot of oxygen in there to keep it going. So a sick bird will quite often need to be put into an environment where there's extra oxygen for them to breathe, to make sure that they can get through their illness. So if you have a bird that's ill, it's important to take them. You must take them to the vet. But if the vet suggests that they be put under care because of their condition, then you should do that, because you got to be able to breathe, and they need the oxygen in the air when they're breathing. So I love you too, Roman bird. In their trachea, there isn't a soft spot. There's no area in here that you could reach up and strangle a bird. But holding their body tightly is the real issue. You can't hold their bodies tightly. They have no way to breathe then. But you could grab them by the neck tightly, and it wouldn't strangle them. There's no soft tissue there to cause that to happen. Now, they have an area where they store their food up here that's called the crop, and it'll fill up and then slowly put food down into a large storage area. And then beyond that, there's the stomach. So in other birds, it's often called the gizzard, but you don't give these guys any rocks to chew on or anything like that. Hi, Roman. But it's an area of storage where things move from there slowly into the stomach. Now, proceeding from the crop, which you've probably seen, it's this area up front here that fills up. It's easier to see on birds that pluck themselves, but we certainly don't want that. But that area will swell up when they eat. It slowly passes that food on down into the ventriculus and the proventriculus. One is where the food is like a large storage area for the food, and the other one is a true stomach like what we have. Isn't it? Isn't it? And they differ from us in that they actually pass their urine, urea, and feces all at the same time through a single opening in their body. In the cloaca, everything comes together and it all comes out. That area covers a multitude of sins, and it includes the reproductive organs.
If you are enjoying our videos, we hope that you can find it in your heart to support our work. It costs between $25,000 to $30,000 a year to care for our flock of heartbroken and abused birds. Most of our birds came with feather destructive disorder. Even a basic exam with blood work costs $300. Medical emergencies cost us thousands a year. We are a non-profit, and donations are tax-deductible to the full extent of the law. We need your support. Birds deserve a happy and healthy life. Become our patron at www.patreon.com/Chloe Sanctuary to support us on a per-video basis, or donate at our webpage today.
In mammals, we produce urea as the end product of what we do with our proteins when we're metabolizing them. As we burn proteins, we produce urea. But they don't. They produce uric acid. And this is one of the reasons that we have to be careful with how much protein we give them, because this is the source of gout in birds. And I have gout. And it does progress. It starts in our feet, and it works up, and it will progress at the ankles, and it will actually eat away your bone over time. But with these guys, it can get circulatory and end up in their organs, and ending up in their major organs, it'll kill them. So we have to be careful. Too much protein is not a good thing for birds for that reason. So keeping in mind that they produce uric acid, not urea like we do. And this gout is a real danger. I'm not sure if they have a medicine for that. I don't know if they can take the things that we take. Allopurinol, I have no clue if that would work on a bird, nor do I know if you could. I don't have any birds with gout, so. And usually if you get a bird that's gouty, if you find it soon enough, you may be able to solve it. Usually this is a post-mortem diagnosis, so our best bet is to try to keep their protein levels adequate but not too high. They have a thing called a renal shunt, where the blood in the gastrointestinal tract can pass directly through the kidneys without passing through the liver. And if this starts to happen and they're sick, if you see them drinking a lot of water and they've got watery stools, then it may be a severe problem, and you should make sure you get your birds to the vet right away. Another interesting fact about birds is that most female birds only have one active ovary, and it's the one on the left in most cases. You wouldn't know that. You're a guy. You're the eldest of the bird world. You're Cecil. Cecil the bird. Aren't you Cecil? It's a Cecil bird. Hi, Bob. Hey, Bob. How's it going? Hey, Peach. Hey, Shug Shug. I know. You only have one active ovary, huh? What's also interesting about female birds is they have the ability to store calcium in their hollow long bones. And you don't need my pen. Nope. They have the ability to store calcium in their long bones when they're getting ready to lay eggs. So they have an area to draw from. Unlike with humans that you have to go down and get calcium supplements. And from what we've heard too with the litigation going on by the Attorney General in New York, you go down to buy a supplement like that, you're not sure what's in the container either. But with these guys, they store it up. That doesn't mean, of course, that we shouldn't add things to their diet to try to increase calcium if we know they're egg laying. We should. Depending on the size of the bird, from the smallest parrotlet up to the big hyacinth macaws, they have from 11 to 25 vertebrae in their neck. The number of vertebrae in their neck makes them highly flexible. And if you've ever felt one of these guys, it's S-shaped. You feel in here, and you should do that every day. We do have a video on that, on doing that exam on your bird, but you'll feel it's kind of an S shape, and these big birds have 25 vertebrae in there, so gives them an increased flexibility, and where they can almost do what you saw in The Exorcist, except they don't do the green pea soup part.
We hope you will consider supporting us on Patreon today. This is how it works. We produce up to 2 videos a month. As a patron, you pledge to give us a donation, whatever you feel is right and meets your budget. And Patreon gives us your gift monthly. You can easily set a limit on how much you donate a month. You can change the amount of your pledge at any time. Your gift will allow us to continue bringing you entertaining and informative videos. Some of our planned videos are: Stop Doing That! Behavior Problems in Parrots and How to Deal with Them. What You Doing? Where do bird behaviors come from? How much bird behavior is learned and what is innate? Making toys. Parrots need enrichment. Don't let their enrichment send you to the poorhouse. Building a parrot library. Having the information you need at your fingertips. You can find out about these on our Patreon page at patreon.com/Chloe Sanctuary. We look forward to your participation in Cockatooed.
Their ability to fly is quite amazing. But if you've noticed, they walk awkwardly. Well, the way that they're built, they don't have the best advantage for walking. So it gives them that kind of Groucho Marx kind of stutter. Or maybe Igor from Young Frankenstein. Or Igor, right? Igor from Young Frankenstein. But it is fun to watch. It's fun to watch them walk. They don't do it terribly well. I was reading a few months ago, and I don't have the reference right here, so this is going to be anecdotal until I look it up again. But the biologist was talking about how birds developed and why having just a few feathers could be an advantage. And you can make that little extra move to go up or that kind of thing. And the latest research has actually shown that that might not be the reason they developed feathers. It seems more likely that they developed these feathers for mating displays. They're pretty dramatic for that, and obviously they express a lot of feeling through them. You've seen the way that with the cockatoos, they get that crest up and the feathers on the back of the neck come up. They can move these feathers around amazingly too. And it shows a lot of what's going on inside the mind there, doesn't it, kid? Yeah. Cecil Bird. I love you. I love you too. While the neck is quite flexible, the back is basically fused except for two small joints where it's hooked together. And salamander actually has arthritis in those two flexible spots there, so we have to watch that closely. They have a rigid area here back here basically called the keel, which they have strong pectoral muscles, chest muscles that attach to it. And this provides the power for flight. If you've noticed, those wings can beat pretty hard. When Sugar starts beating her wings, that big girl up there, and you get whacked in the face with them, you can really feel the power of those things. And Cecil, you got it too, but you're not quite as big as she is. Yeah, you're not quite as big. And they have the ability to talk. They don't have a voice box. They have another area that they use, the syrinx, and it's where they produce these sounds. They also don't have an epiglottis, and that's what covers your trachea, so that when you're swallowing food, it doesn't go down into your lungs, which is why we have to be careful that they don't aspirate things into their lungs. They don't have that flap of material to stop that. It also helps them produce that loud sound. Yeah, because they don't have the epiglottis, they can actually produce more sound, which makes them so much easier to hear. Their lovely voices. They're lovely voices, right, Cecil? Their beaks are pretty amazing. They have a calyptorhynchid beak. This guy right here does. Allows them to move their upper and lower parts of their beak independently. Gives them a great amount of power too, doesn't it? Yeah, a lot of strength in that crush. Yes. We can crush a Brazil nut or pop open a walnut like there's nothing to it, right? They basically have a double hinge in here that gives them a lot more power in their beak than we have in our mouths. They can also move the beaks forward, which allows them to, gives them the ability to move their beaks in all these directions. Their beaks can go this way, their beaks can go that way, and gives them a great amount of power and flexibility. One of the great advantages they have over us, although I did see some research recently that in some finds they found early birds that had teeth. So it's quite possible that these guys started with teeth and lost them in favor of a beak. It makes sense because the beak lasts a lot longer. There's no gum disease. There's no rotting teeth. I think my teeth started rotting the moment I got them in, which is probably true of most people and most animals in general. If you've had dogs and cats, you've had that teeth rot thing going on. And despite the fact that they seem rigid and to most of us look just like hard material, there's a lot going on in a beak. And in here they have only one true sinus, where we have two. They have only one. So in some species of parrots, that can cause infections to be quite severe. Their feathers are pretty amazing too. There are a lot of different kinds. There's the ones that cover, the coverts, and they have their flight feathers and their semi-plumes and their down feathers, and they're used for a lot of things. Not only are they used for flight, but they're also used for keeping the body warm or cooling the body, depending on the circumstances. So they act as protection from cold and rain and weather in general. They help to protect the eyes, and they produce a powder down. And that powder actually helps to protect their bodies. And you can even see it on their beaks. There's a dark spot where Cecil was eating this morning, but the rest of it's white, and that's actually from powder down. I have no idea what that's like. It's everywhere. This morning I was reaching for my reading glasses, and I pulled them out, and they were just covered with white. And it was I had just set them on a piece of paper that had been there maybe a day or two. And I pull them up, and my glasses are just covered with a big white spot across here. The powder down, if you were to look at it under a microscope, you'll see that it has little hooks. So that's why when you go to wipe it off something, it doesn't tend to come right off. Usually you have to put something on there. It's a good reason to keep HEPA filters running in your house, just to keep, especially if you have cockatoos. Because otherwise that gets into your lungs. And some people can get that out better than others. Some people it doesn't, and they get bird keeper's lungs. So keep in mind that that little powder isn't just powder. It's like a hook, and that's why it sticks to things. Another interesting thing is that I've had people say, how can they just sit on a perch all night? It's actually easy because they have a locking mechanism that clamps down on their perch, and then they can forget about it. So when they go to sleep, there's no thinking about it. Right, Cecil? Right, Cecil? Cecil says, that's right. What do you think? And you have one foot locked to that rope perch right now, don't you, you big silly girl? You big sugar bird. The big sugar bird. Sugar, too, slowly over time, I've reduced her medicine, and I think we've got her at a really good point now because she seems just really happy and getting on and playing and doing all kinds of things, and her activity level's up a little bit, and her plucking has been 0, so she's doing pretty good, aren't you, kid? At 0.18. Yeah, amazing. They have the ability to heal their bones. Their bones heal much better than ours do. They form a fibrous callus over the bone quickly after an injury, so they can heal pretty fast on their own. It's especially prominent in young birds. But older birds have that ability too. It just doesn't happen quite as fast. I'm not sure what the factor is compared to us, but they do heal their bones much faster than we do. And it's interesting that we use some human medicines that affect hormone levels on these guys because they have a lot of variation in their hormones compared to us. It's too extensive to go over in this video, but there's a lot of variation in their hormones that are different than us. So, yet some of the things that we've made for humans, because let's face it, there's no money in studying these things for birds, so it doesn't really happen. But some of the medicines that we have, such as Lupron, which is used to keep birds from ovulating, if you get a bird that's laying too many eggs. And they have the ability to lay eggs whether or not they're fertile, which in captivity may be a bit of a problem. Again, if they're not getting the right kind of nutrition, they can get egg-bound. And that can be a real issue. You An egg-bound bird is, if it doesn't get to the vet, it's going to die. If you had parents that, especially mothers that, back in the day when I was a kid, back when the dinosaurs were still roaming the earth, my mother would talk about getting blood poisoning, where you'd see a red line going up your arm. That's actually an infection in your lymphatic system. They have a extremely limited lymphatic system, and they don't have any lymph nodes, no areas where there's big junctures of lymph. So they don't have any of that going on. But I still remember my mom talking about the lymphatic system and talking about it being blood poisoning, where in fact it was actually just an infection in the lymph system, or poison in the lymph system. Right, Roman? They have a choanal slit, which is an opening between the nares and the sinus. And if humans had it, it would be kind of like the cleft palate. Another thing they have that we don't have, Roman, you want to show them? They have scales on their feet. We don't. We don't have scales. Kind of looks like it belongs on a lizard, doesn't it? Yeah, kind of. They're prey animals. They hide their illnesses. If you noticed especially if you talk to someone my age, 60s or 70s or 80s, they'll always be talking about their illnesses. I have my gout, and we won't go through everything else. But humans are always talking about what's wrong. Oh, I have an ache here. I feel like this. I've been sick. These guys wouldn't say a word to anyone. They would be quiet, and if they had a terrible stomach ache, they'd be standing there going, trying to look like they're fine. This is a typical prey animal stance, and it's the kind of thing that's important to note. That's why we weigh them. That's why we check their poop daily, because they're going to hide illness, and that's typical of any prey animal. If you're the slowest gazelle with a lame leg, that predator's probably going to take you down. Yeah. Okay, I'll put my notes in my lap now. I didn't want to put my notes in my lap, but then Cecil's trying to take over here, and Roman's getting nervous. You getting nervous, Roman? Give me a kiss. That's a kiss. I don't actually kiss their beaks, but I get close and say, give me a kiss. You're not going to eat my notes. You're not, okay? Parrots can make more noise than any other bird, and no one who's been around parrots or or these lovely cockatoos knows anything about that. My notes are not going to survive. Well, the outermost portion of the beak is hard and insensitive, but just under the surface is an area with blood vessels, and there's sensitive nerve endings down there. Just below the surface of the beak, there are blood vessels and nerve endings that are quite sensitive. There's also a hollow area in the beak. You noticed underneath here, there's a hollow section. And the beak tends to grow right here from the areas that produce the beak, or right here along the series. And if that becomes damaged, there's really no way to fix that. So this is an area where you want to be careful. Recently, Lorelei just had a cut here on the side. I don't know which bird got her. Somewhere in the preening, something went wrong, and she's healing fine. But that's an area that if you have damage to this area of the beak, the area here where they produce the cells to make the beak, you need to make sure you get your bird to the vet. And the beak doesn't just grow down, but it also grows out. So it's growing down like this, and it's expanding like that. Now, if you've got a beak that's not growing right, this can be due to improper feeding. So, it's important that they have the right diet. It can also be from a liver disease that can cause this. Another reason that happens too is that when some breeders are in a hurry to feed these guys, and they'll feed them from the same side every day, and if they're not getting the right nutrition and their beaks are soft, then the beak can become tweaked, and that's where you'll see scissor beak. The beak can actually, instead of coming, I don't have any birds with it here fortunately, but instead of coming together like this, it'll twist out like this. And the only solution that I know of for that situation is to have the beak trimmed. So you're going to have the bird down every 3 to 6 months to have that trimmed back so they can eat properly. As with most problems with birds in captivity, it's nutrition and exercise that are the two keys that lead to these fatalities in birds, and abnormalities. So getting them proper exercise, flight is the best exercise. I don't think anybody's going to doubt that. Recent research done by biologists basically show that about 10% of their metabolic rate is used in average daily moving around. When they fly, they use 100%. So that's the only time they get to that. It's only real solid exercise they get is from flying. We don't know exactly what they eat in the wild because no one spent the money to research that. Have they? It's important to note that just because something smells and tastes good to us doesn't mean it's going to taste that way to them. We have roughly 3,300 taste buds. They have a little over 300. It's not going to taste the same to them. Their sense of smell is quite different than ours as well. So what's important is that the right nutrition is in the food. We like Harrison's and Rowdy Bush. Those are the two pellets that we would feed our birds. We do also make sure they get a lot of wet food. Specifically, squash in their diet's a good thing. They need some extra fiber to help everything move through. You don't want that colon to start slowing down because if the motion of the colon reduces, then they're going to have to start pushing with their gut, and if they start pushing with their gut, then they're eventually going to get a prolapse, and you don't want them to go there. So they need some kind of wetness in their diet. So we get that primarily from vegetables and specifically squash, and you can see that in our video on Bob's Mash. It's on our Chloe Sanctuary YouTube channel, and it's in the food section, so the diet section. Right? Right. It's important to note that because of their different respiration, if you see their tail bobbing when they're breathing, there's a problem. Okay? They need to go to the vet. And this tail bobbing can be caused by an infection or some kind of mass in their abdomen. So it may not be that they're literally having a problem with their respiratory system, but rather it's something else complicating it. But whatever it is, it needs to be seen by a vet right away to keep your loved one happy and healthy. Yeah. And another thing that's odd is because of the way they have air circulating through their hollow bones, if you have a fracture in a bone, this can potentially lead to some kind of infection from outside air. Because they're actually getting, you're cracking into their actual air system, the respiratory system when you fracture a bone. So it's important to check with your vet if you have a fracture of any kind. I mean, obviously you would go to the vet on a fracture anyway, but you can see one of the other reasons that's important to do it because there could be a systemic infection that happens from that as well. Another important point is if a bird is exhibiting what appears to be diarrhea, It may not be diarrhea. True diarrhea in a bird is not a whole bunch of extra urine. What it is when you look and you see the feces are not coming out in strings. Instead, they're broken and they're kind of a mash and they kind of blend into everything else. That would be diarrhea. When you see a whole bunch of extra urine, that could be diabetes or some other systemic problem. So again, you need to see your vet right away in that situation. That's not actually diarrhea, that's increased urine. It's also important in these situations not to fall prey to the idea that you can use some homeopathic or some over-the-counter remedy. That's not going to work. One of the people that changed the lives of almost everyone on the planet, Steve Jobs, he tried to solve his cancer by juicing and drinking a whole bunch of juice. And if he hadn't done that, he might still be around today. He certainly would have lived for many years to come. They found the cancer early enough. It's just that he tried the juicing and some other natural remedies, and that's why we lost him. So don't do that to your bird. Stick to what medical science has found. Oh, and something else I failed to mention. When talking about their taste buds, there was one lady who out on Facebook was saying, well, I'm not going to give my birds these pellets. They taste terrible. I wouldn't eat them. And I remember thinking at the time that how would you possibly know what that's going to taste like to a bird? I guess the best way to describe that is like their vision, okay? With their vision, they see into the ultraviolet. They have a different range of vision than we do. So I have no idea what Cecil looks like. I mean, he looks white to me. He does. He looks white. But what does he look like in the ultraviolet? I don't know. And I don't know what things taste like to him either. And, I know he tastes things, but I have no clue what they taste like to him. One thing I know with that ultraviolet vision that they have, looking at a piece of fruit or vegetable that you bought at the store, when it says, they put the sign over it saying fresh. I've often redefined fresh as not spoiled yet. That's my definition of fresh at the grocery store. But packed in ice, shipped across the country, kept in storage until it's thrown on the shelf, and then kept in these refrigerators in the grocery stores. If you noticed over the years, if you're ancient like me, notice that they're getting colder and colder. I mean, it's almost like you've got freezer levels of cold. When you reach in to grab broccoli, there's still ice on it in some cases. Yeah, you agree? You do? You really agree with me? Oh, that's a good bird. And I want you eating that with my notes. Those are my notes. So these guys can see that. And I was actually talking to a lady at the grocery store who doesn't know much about birds, but she was really interested when she commented on how many vegetables I was buying and how people normally are buying things in little containers, that you get a 4-ounce dinner for $5 or whatever, some kind of diet food. Let's see, that's roughly $15 a pound. I don't think I'm buying any of that. But she said, well, don't they have stuff that they're getting ready to throw out that they could give you? Yes, they do, but there's a couple of issues with that. One, if it's molding, thank you, that's what I wanted. I wanted you to modify that for me, sweetheart. I took it off the clipboard because Cecil wanted to eat it. Now he's on my lap. Now you're eating it. So I couldn't take the old stuff. And then she mentioned the trimmings. Well, what about when they trim off the outside? And the problem with the trimmings, too, is that when they're trimming the outside of kale and lettuce and that kind of thing, that's where the poison, when they spray, that's where it's more likely to land. And that's another issue, too, when people say, well, you don't use organic. Well, it depends whether I use organic. And there are reasons not to as well. I know what you're eating in my notes, you silly girl. You want another piece of paper? I should have brought you some. Yes, I know, I failed. Once again, I failed. There's issues with organic, too. And although they don't spray poison on it, there is poison in our environment at all times. Where they get the manure that they put down on the ground for fertilizing, and some of the organics done in other countries, I don't know how well that's controlled. Sometimes it's actually safer to get things that aren't organic. Depends on the circumstance, and then there are things like apples where they hit them with more poisons than almost any other kind of fruit. Where corn, they don't have to use a lot of poison on it, so it's usually pretty safe for these guys. Yeah, it's not something I have a good answer for, organic versus conventional. It's important before your bird is examined by the vet, if you can tell them something so that they don't have to see it for themselves, because maybe the bird's going to poop there, maybe it's not. If you can look down and see that the feces looks normal, okay, and yet there's a whole bunch of extra water in urine, that's not diarrhea. So you don't tell your bird, you don't tell your vet, my bird has diarrhea. You tell them there's extra urine. Because the extra urine can be a renal compromise, kidney compromise, and that's something that's far different. So if you were to treat a bird for diarrhea that actually had a renal compromise, then most likely the bird's not going to survive that. It needs its renal function back. So when you go to the vet, you want to be able to tell the vet any changes that you've seen. They're not talking as much. They're not playing with toys the same way they were. Their activity level is decreased, and you may be able to see that better when you're looking from a distance than you will right up close to them, because they may actually perk up when you're around to try to hide their illness. So keep that in mind. Thank you for watching Cockatoo. Cockatoos with Attitude.
We welcome your feedback on our videos. We look forward to your insights, tips, questions, stories, and pictures. You can email us at cockatoo@chloesanctuary.org, reach us on Twitter @Chloe Sanctuary, and join with us on our Facebook Chloe Sanctuary page.
Science knowledge only adds to the excitement, the mystery, and the awe of a flower.